In this lesson, we're going to be talking about rogue access points and attacks. Now, you can see here I've got up the Wi-Fi Explorer. And again, that's pretty typical of a program of this type that is looking to find Wi-Fi networks or wireless networks and displaying information about them. You'll find that NetStumbler is similar to this, Kismet, Kismac. Those types of programs are very similar to this. The interfaces may look slightly different. The information is all going to be there. So I'm just using Wi-Fi Explorer here for ease of use and for demonstration purposes. Now you can see I've got two network names here, and there's all of the related information associated with them. There's one method of doing a rogue access point, and sometimes you'll find this in the case of enterprise networks, where somebody will bring in an access point and plug it in and give themselves access reasonably close to where they've plugged their access point in. And so that gives some people some rogue wireless access. And in that case, that may provide access to individuals who shouldn't have network access in your building. In an enterprise, people can sometimes plug in access points that will allow them or others to circumvent a wireless access policy on behalf of the organization. And as an ethical hacker, that's certainly something that you want to look after. Another thing that you can do, though, is you can get an access point and have it look very similar, if not identical, to the access point that we've got here. So let's take a look at Kilroy WLAN. Because it's using WPA2 personal, what I could do would be to create a Kilroy WLAN myself and set up an access point for it. And instead of giving somebody network access, what I'm really doing is copying the authentication for this particular network. So in that case, the rogue access point isn't about providing convenient wireless to employees or circumventing access policies on behalf of an enterprise. What it's about is gathering data, and specifically gathering authentication data for legitimate access points. Now, you run a risk there of whether it looks identical enough or not. If it doesn't look quite identical enough, there's a possibility of it being detected. The other thing that you need to do is make sure that somehow you get the legitimate access point off the air, whether you do some sort of denial of service attack against it, or if you've got physical access, you just simply unplug it, or whatever you do, you need to get the real access point out of the equation so that yours shows up. Another way of doing rogue access points, and you'll find this sometimes in public places, you just stick up an access point where there is no authentication. So like Speedwell Home here has no security. It's just an open authentication, open access point. You throw it up, and sometimes people will just connect to those and start transmitting data. In that case, if you've got control of that access point, you could be sniffing the data that's going along, and you may see usernames and passwords being sent across. You may see credit card information. You may see a lot of different details. You may see intellectual property. So you could set up an access point that just has open access and put it in a public place, and you would see a lot of people, particularly if it's a busy public place, getting access to your access point and bypassing the ones that have passwords associated with them or have some authentication mechanism. Give somebody free Wi-Fi, they're probably going to take advantage of it. That's another different way of doing a rogue access point. And if you are doing a penetration test, you certainly could set up an access point or even set your computer up as an access point and use it to start gathering data from the employees at an enterprise or an organization if you are doing a penetration test or an ethical hack against them as a target.